Hi, hello. I've come to Norfolk Park today to do another video blog, and today I'm going to do a video blog on the subject of antidepressant withdrawal effects, because that's something that's a big problem that's been talked about quite a lot recently, but it's not something that people talk about much in the press, or at least they haven't done until quite recently, and it's something a lot of people go through because antidepressants are one of the most prescribed drugs around, and I took them for 10 years. So I'm going to talk about that, and today I've come to Norfolk Park, just on the outskirts of Sheffield city centre. I don't know if you can quite see it there, but we've got a gorgeous view of the city centre and a gorgeous blue sky. So, antidepressants. I took antidepressants for a whole decade. I know some people take them for a lot shorter periods of time, some people take them for a lot longer. Yeah, people have been on them, they've been around for so long, so popular for so long, that some people have actually taken them literally for decades now. Well, I started to suffer with depression in about 2006, I think, and it wasn't until about 2011 when I actually sought any kind of treatment. And I promptly went on tablets. It seemed like a viable option at the time, so I was quite happy with it. Didn't really have any side effects. I've had various drugs over the time because sometimes they seem to do what's known as a Prozac poop out, as if what happens there is it kind of stops working and you have to try something else. But some people think antidepressants don't work at all. They think it's all placebo. Well, I don't actually know. I've always gone on the assumption that they do work. I've always been happy using them. But unfortunately, medical care is not always very accessible. I live in England. We have probably the worst healthcare system in the developed world in this country. And, it's okay for emergencies. It does a reasonable job with emergencies. But if you have anything mental health wise, then really it's absolutely dreadful. You just don't want anything to do with it. They don't want anything to do with you. You're better off out of it completely. And that's why in 2021 I finally made the decision to stop taking my tablets. Well, 2021 wasn't actually the first time I stopped taking the tablets. I actually tried to stop back in 2017. I was taking a medication then called venlafaxine. Now, GPs are a bit reluctant to prescribe that nowadays, but the one I had at the time was alright with it. That had side effects. You had to take it twice a day. It had side effects, so things like constipation and a lot of tiredness and lack of appetite and things like that. To be honest, it was tolerable because it seemed to work, but it's not always very pleasant having to deal with side effects. But I was willing to put up with it, seeing as though I was seeing some degree of benefit. But unfortunately, my doctor was very unreliable. As I just said, we don't have very good healthcare in this country, especially not with mental health. And they wouldn't write repeat prescriptions reliably. They wouldn't see me when I needed an appointment. And eventually I literally just ran out. What are you supposed to do when you run out? You just have to put up with it. So I basically had to try and stop taking those with no medical advice at all. And that's venlafaxine is actually one of the worst ones to come off. It has the worst withdrawal effects. And I was getting all kind of withdrawal effects. Well, firstly, the positive side of it, because it caused constipation when I was taking it. I don't like talking about constipation when I'm in a park with, not many people around, is there? But you don't want to talk about constipation when you're out in a park. You stop taking it, well, that actually had the advantage. I'd never enjoyed going to the toilet so much, trust me on that one. But you get all these weird sensations. I was feeling cold. You get what's known as flu-like symptoms. I was feeling very cold, having temperatures, and you get funny sensations around your brain. If you look on the internet, they're actually known as brain zaps, and they tend to be associated with antidepressant withdrawal. No one seems to know much about why we end up with these so-called brain zaps, but people who stop antidepressants seem to get them, as did I. It's quite an interesting phenomenon. But eventually, the depression symptoms came back. I was crying all the time. I was upset all the time. It was very, very unpleasant to have to stop taking this medication. And eventually, it just got so bad that I just thought, well, as soon as possible, you're going to have to find a new doctor. So I did, and the doctor put me on escitalopram, the new doctor. I'd been on escitalopram before, and that doesn't have the side effects that venlafaxine does, so that was quite good. And it seemed to work quite well, got on well with the doctor, but eventually the pandemic came, a lot of surgeries shut, and I won't go into detail, but my doctor didn't want me as a patient anymore, and many surgeries were shut, and it was hard to find a new one. So basically, I ended up stopping it. This is in January 2021. Now, unlike the previous attempt, where I only had a few tablets, I actually had like a few to try and last me indefinitely. This time I actually had, I think, 2 whole boxes. I said, I'm not going to do this with a doctor's help. I simply just do not want to deal with them. They're that much trouble, doctors in this country. I think the doctor probably would have given me some extra prescriptions if I'd needed them, but I didn't want the hassle. But anyway, I had 2 boxes, that's 56 tablets to last me indefinitely. So I lowered the dose. Usually people tell you lower it as slow and slow and slow as you possibly can. That's advisable actually. If you've got medical help, that's advisable to do, because you can get prescriptions for a lower dose, you can get it in liquid forms, things like that. You can do that with a doctor's help. I couldn't because I didn't have a doctor. So I basically had to lower it as quickly as I could. Now, fortunately, the withdrawal effects of escitalopram and citalopram are not as bad as the effects on venlafaxine. So when I was coming off citalopram, I had pretty much the same withdrawal effects as I did on venlafaxine. However, they weren't as bad. It's difficult to describe and put it into words, but I think it's safe to say they weren't as bad. If you look on the internet and in the news, there's always people who have really, really bad experiences with these things, and I can understand why they have them. I know to an extent what it's like, but it's quite difficult to describe. But basically, the symptoms were about the same, or the same type of symptoms rather, but not as bad. So how did I actually withdraw from it? I actually started taking one on alternate days. Took a tablet every other day. And then after a while, I think I dropped it down to a tablet every 2 days, or half a tablet every other day, maybe then every 2 days. And do something like that. That kind of made the symptoms fluctuate a bit. So you might have them for a couple of days, then you don't for a day when you've taken one. How you do that, if you try and you'll have to think about it on your own. Depends how many you've got, depends whether you've got medical help or whether you're going it alone. It depends on your tolerance though. You may find that you are willing to tolerate some degree of withdrawal effects like I was. And I actually managed to make 1 box of tablets last 6 months. Yeah, after that 6 months was up, my withdrawal symptoms had practically gone away, and that was only after 1 box of tablets, so I still had another box spare if I needed them. But I'd managed to make 1 box, 28 tablets, last a whole 6 months. And by that point the symptoms had gone. Your mileage may vary, as they say, but this was in 2021. I finally finished them in May 2021. It's now March 2024, so I've pretty much been free of them for nearly 3 whole years. And you may be wondering, what's it like actually being free of the tablets? Well, to be honest, I'm going to say very unpleasant. I didn't have any doctor's help, I didn't have any therapist help, because my therapist packed her business in during the pandemic, so I was seeing a therapist when I was on tablets. When I was trying to come off the tablets, I didn't have a therapist, so that's... So I had to do the whole thing on my own, no family support, no friend support, literally just doing the whole thing on my own. And I did manage it, but it was very, very unpleasant. So really, the big question is, can you actually do this on your own? Well, I've proven that you can. If you read any leaflets, any book, any TV news reports, any website, they'll always say, don't even think about doing this without your doctor's help. Well, that's actually quite good advice. However, a lot of people don't have a doctor. Maybe in some countries they can't afford a doctor. In some countries they don't have very good healthcare like we don't. Well, in that case you have to go it alone. You have to, basically the only resource is videos like this by people who've been through it. And then all you can do is listen to other people's experiences and prepare yourself for what you might have to go through. And basically don't worry about it. That's all I'm going to say. It's very worrying to go through these kinds of symptoms. But really don't. It's not harmful. It's really just something you have to put up with. Now, if you've got to look after a family or you've got to work or something like that, that's very difficult to do. I admit that, but ultimately, if you're going to stop taking them, you're going to get symptoms. and that unfortunately means you're going to have to put up with it. So how's life now 3 years on? Well, I don't have the withdrawal symptoms anymore, which is good. Unfortunately, depression symptoms, however, have come back. I've been putting up with depression symptoms all the time, basically. I get very, very tired. I get very upset and tearful at the simplest of things. I get anxious. I struggle to... Yeah, I'm quite anxious just wandering around a field with a camera. I know obviously I'm drawing attention to myself by holding a camera, but I do video all the time. I'm quite used to it. I worry about going back to work. You know, will I manage it? I may not. That's the thing. That's the problem with depression. I've effectively had that since 2006 and it's now 2024. But I'm heading back into the city centre to go home now. Might stay out for a bit while the sun shines out. If you're watching this video, I'm very grateful for watching. And if you've experienced something similar, if you've even had a different experience to what I've been through, and want to share that, please do feel free to leave a comment.